Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Classic Comics. Comic artist Rob Liefeld has posted some messages on Facebook in which he seems to suggest that big changes are coming for the comic book industry. Now, this is from the website fandompulse.com. Deadpool creator Rob Liefeld warns comic industry is going to have a huge collapse in 2024. Now, I think this title is maybe a little misleading. He does say some things that suggest there are bad times coming, but he doesn't actually come out and say this specifically. But let's just take a look here. So, several mainstream professionals in the comic industry tried to make the case that everything is fine for comic sales, complete with false data that appeared on the surface like the comic industry was growing. However, now Rob Liefeld has posted that he knows of major cuts coming to Marvel and DC Comics in 2024. The alarm bells sounded 2 weeks ago for the comic industry when comic shop owner Glenn O'Leary went viral with a rant about the state of comics. A video clip went viral where he made it clear he's had enough of self insert characters from hack writers and that he's unable to sell products. Rather than listen to the owner, the industry attacked him, trying, as they often do, to label him a bigot. Like a superhero, fan favorite Mark Miller swept in to defend Glenn, coining the term cancel pigs to address those in the industry who would hurt a shop owner for voicing his frustrations. Miller tried to devise solutions for the comic industry, setting off several conversations on the state of comics. Rob Liefeld was one of those who chimed in, who made a post about woke comic Twitter, pointing out that they never have any solutions to the problems in comics. He also mentioned that these people, who seem to be similar to the cancel pigs Miller discussed, are to be avoided. And actually, I have that other article here where he mentions the woke comic Twitter thing. He received such a backlash from industry insiders and their shills that he eventually deleted the post, even though he stated what many comic fans thought. Liefeld has a podcast where he covers different topics regarding comics, from comics history to business strategies. It's one of the best podcasts out there. The worries for the comic industry still raged online, which is when Heidi MacDonald posted her damage control for mainstream writers and artists. However, she failed to mention that all industry growth comes from foreign manga and young adult books like Dogman. Floppy comics, the comic shop staple, have declined or stagnated over the last few years. Despite the fact showing Marvel and DC Comics to be in massive trouble, dozens of mainstream industry pros who are responsible for the poor sales posted online gloating about how the comic industry wasn't actually in decline. Rob Liefeld then posted to his Facebook, completely counter to McDonald's narrative, stating, "If you see the old guard making a lot of noise of late, purposefully being more vocal, there's a reason for all of that. Should be better understood in early 2024. Hashtag consolidating." And they have the post right here. He further elaborated in a comment, "I'm just an informed observer," which ominously suggests he has inside information to back up his claim. Rob Liefeld implies the comic industry will undergo major layoffs and restructuring. Well, I mean, there's a couple of different ways to read it. But yeah, that is one way you could read those comments. This echoes statements made by several people over the years about the comic industry hanging on a tenuous thread, including cyberfrog creator Ethan Van Sciver, who famously predicted in 2022 that DC Comics would shut down. Whether this chain of events from Miller to McDonald prompted Liefeld's post is unclear. Still, it appears he's commenting on recent events on Facebook and how the whisper network of cancel pigs surrounding Marvel and DC Comics are right to be afraid. After talking to nearly any retailer, comic sales are in the toilet and they're not looking to get better soon. So, yeah, I mean, I think the author is reading a lot into this. Yes, there's certainly a way to interpret it where consolidating means that they're maybe going to cut costs, cut staff, cut departments, that sort of thing. But it's vague enough that I think this can be interpreted in a number of ways. This article clearly takes the stance that he means that the comic industry will see some significant restructuring of some sort, which would probably mean layoffs of some kind, probably a lot of layoffs. So don't be surprised if you see a lot of these SJW comic pros starting to rewrite history and pretend that they've been saying comics have had a problem all along, and they've been sounding the alarm about low sales all along. I think that will happen because some of these woke comic pros are now admitting that comics are in trouble, even if they won't admit exactly what the problem is. Case in point, Mark Waid admits comicsgate was right. There are massive problems in the comic industry. So let's just read this. Mark Waid can't help himself. He has to insert himself into any comic industry drama wherever alternatives with people he disapproves of making comics are concerned. Over the last 2 weeks, the world's finest DC Comics writer has lashed out as Comicsgate was proved right about the industry again, calling people criticizing poor comic sales as alt-right on multiple occasions. Now he's admitting the legion of retailers, fans, and creators who have voiced concern for the health of comics are right. The comic industry has been on a downward trend for a long time, first noted by several people who banded together under the hashtag Comicsgate after several people like Yellow Flash 2, That Umbrella Guy, and Diversity in Comics took to YouTube to point out Marvel and DC Comics replacing beloved characters with race and gender swapped counterparts, as well as a propensity for modern writers to turn every character they write into something LGBTQ in a terrible self insert. The problems with Marvel and DC gained national attention once the conservative think tank The Federalist published an article on the topic in 2017. Wade took bad reviews personally at the time and, in a bizarre online tirade, demanded Richard C. Meyer, who used the Diversity in Comics handle on YouTube, to be brought to him at Baltimore Comic Con. He posted to Facebook, quote, "If anyone sees this gentleman or any of his friends, I need you to come find me and tell me immediately. Even if I'm on a panel, come up and interrupt. Please circulate this request as widely as you possibly can through all your social media accounts. Fellow pros, tell each other. This is about attempting to lessen the harassment of women in comics, and it's important. Please spread the word. Thank you." Unquote. It wouldn't stop there with Meyer. As the YouTuber gained more popularity, so did Meyer's book, Jawbreakers Lost Souls, which made several $100,000 on crowd funds, scaring legacy pros like Wade in the process. He was set to release Jawbreakers and was working on a deal with Antarctic Press when Wade had a call in with the publisher, convincing them not to do business with Meyer. A tortious interference lawsuit resulted, which Meyer eventually settled with Wade out of court. With Mark Miller drawing a spotlight on the problems in the comic industry over the past few weeks, teaming up to talk with retailers about what needs to be done to change and save mainstream comics, pros like Wade took it personally once more. Instead of seeing sales declining and working to change their failed product, they decided to double down on attacking anyone concerned about the health of the comic industry. Mark Waid made multiple posts on Facebook screeching alt-right at his perceived enemies. Despite no one mentioning Waid, he became particularly agitated once Miller's term cancel pig entered the zeitgeist, a term describing the professionals and their shills who attack anyone who disagrees with them politically. Now he's admitted that the people of Comicsgate, fed up with the terrible self-insert characters of the hack writers in the industry, were right. And the tweet is right here. Yep, the mainstream superhero comic industry is having a rough time of it lately. Few people are saying otherwise, and my heart goes out to the struggling retailers. Steps need to be taken, and even the alt-right loudmouths make some good points. Oh, really? Wow, that's a new one. But when make better comics becomes make more comics that are to my own personal taste, that's the solution I can't get behind. Badly produced comics sure aren't helping, and there are a bunch out there, but neither is pretending that bad superhero comics is some new phenomenon. As someone who's been reading them for nearly 60 years, I can promise you that many of the ones you remember with nostalgic fondness because you liked them as a middle schooler were just as bad compared to the actual classics of the day. Just because you and your friends don't like something doesn't automatically make it empirically bad. Wade proceeds to strawman people he doesn't like because of politics, claiming it's just a matter of taste for many comics, not that the comics being produced are of poor quality. This seems at odds, however, when one looks at the diversity shilling Marvel and DC Comics has made over the last several years. One only needs to look at Mariko Tamaki's Supergirl special to see a self-insert rant on imposter syndrome that is very out of character for the Girl of Steel that no one wanted to read. Alternatively, there's Tim Sheridan's Gay Green Lantern, which he knew would sell poorly, so he begged people to buy the homosexual near porn book to own the bigots. The comic industry is in trouble, and it's because of the content being produced, despite Mark Waid's protests. That's why he prefaced the long winded post about an agreement with Comicsgate, who he labels as alt right, has good points. From the looks of his recent post, he's been going through the 5 stages of grief over the woke comic industry's woes, and Comicsgate being on the right side of history: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Hopefully, more pros come to the last stage sooner rather than later, or comic shops might not exist much longer. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that is a good description of it. The 5 stages of grief. So again, I mean, he admits there's a problem now, and these comic pros aren't really denying it anymore, but doesn't really identify what the problem is. They seem to be freaking out a bit now, and I just don't see the industry bouncing back like it has in the past. They've chased the old audience away, and it's not coming back, not in the numbers they'll need to support the industry. Their only real option now is to go and find a new audience, but that's what they've been doing for what, 7 years now? Since like about 2016 at least. And it hasn't worked because the audience they're chasing doesn't exist. Or at least they aren't there in the numbers that are going to be able to support the industry. There just aren't that many gays and transsexuals reading comics. They're chasing a subset of a subset, and it's just not going to be enough. They've pretty much doomed themselves, but they're never going to admit any mistakes. They'll never admit the role they had in creating this mess. But anyway, who do you think is right here? Is it Liefeld or Mark Waid? Or maybe both of them have good points? Let me know in the comments, and please like this video before you leave, and check out some of my other videos while you're here, and I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching.